Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024 The Movement. This is my teaching on economics, and this lesson is going to be on the Laffер Curve. Why do I want to take so many things that the government is currently doing and run it through the free enterprise system? This is one of the main lessons you need to know about my motivation to get more out of government control. We have two sides of that. Government control is not as good because it's monopoly control and it's politician control with different incentives than the individual, but also the tax code and the tax disincentive of doing economic activity. So that's what the Laffер Curve is. How much tax revenue is coming in based off of different tax rates. So let's go over it real quick. I have a 34-minute one. I'm planning on this one to be in about 15 minutes. And we'll try to do a really quick 5-minute Laffер Curve video to really explain it well. So obviously a 34-minute really goes in depth. This one's going to go halfway in depth and then the really quick one. So let's say you have a $10 streaming service. Disney, Netflix, Hulu, whatever. You have a 25% sales tax, the equivalent of a 20% income tax. It pushes the price up to $12.50. So if you have an income tax of, if you make $12.50, you have an income tax of 20%, you pay $2.50 to the government, you put $10 in your pocket, and then you can pay the streaming service $10 for the streaming service. Either way, the government gets $2.50, either from income tax or from the sales tax, and the streaming service, Netflix or Hulu, they get $10, but you had to earn enough to make $12.50. Now, I'm going to go quickly through some of these. You can pause and look at these if you wish, but at a 200% sales tax, the equivalent of a 2/3 income tax, the price goes up to $30. At 900% sales tax, 900% of $10 is $90. Plus the base $10, you have $100. At some point, you're going to stop doing the streaming service. You're going to cancel it. Everybody's going to have a different point. That's what the Laffер Curve is. That's why it's curved. Because economic activity is curtailed and you have a disincentive by having the tax rate higher. The lower the tax rate, the lower the disincentive. The higher the tax rate, the higher the disincentive. So let's go to this one. I'm going to go really quick through this one. If you want to trade 10 bushels of corn for 10 chickens, you give up 10 and 10. Both sides give up 10. At a 0% tax rate, you get 10 and 10 because the government gets 0. At a 50% tax rate, you give up 10, the other guy gives up 10. You both get 5. The government takes 5 chickens, 5 bushels of corn. At 100%, you both give up 10. You get 0. Government takes it all. You're not going to do that economic activity. You're not going to do that trade. Government's not going to get any corn. They're not going to get any chickens because nobody's going to grow the extra chickens. They're not going to grow the extra corn to do the trade. They're going to do the tax avoidance of doing a different jurisdictions, doing it themselves, growing extra chickens and corn for themselves, or whatever. So you see the different amounts there. At every point, at every tax rates, people start dropping off and not willing to do that trade. You have to have both people doing the trade. If both people are willing to do it at 80%, the transaction will happen. The government will get their 88 chickens and 8 bushels of corn. But at some point, they're going to stop doing it, and government's not going to get any more money, or chickens or corn. Okay, no income comes from an avoided trade. Now let's get right into the Laffer Curve. This is what the Laffer Curve does not assume. This up here says that the taxable GDP stays at 100, no matter what the tax rate is. Well, obviously, like on the streaming service or the chickens and the corn, you're going to start dropping off and doing it yourself, doing without, doing different taxing authority, or doing it under the table, tax evasion, doing it under the table or the like. There's other things you can do for tax evasion. But the Laffer Curve says this: you have income coming up, tax revenue coming in at 30%, you're going to get $30. 80%, you're going to get $80. Too many people think this is the way it is. Economic activity does not change, but it does. This one shows that your income goes down. So if at a 10% taxation rate, you earned 100, This is your GDP, by the way. This is taxable income. This is taxable economic activity, per capita income, if you will. You earn 100, government taxes 10, they get 10, you keep 90. They tax, you stay with 100% earnings. Even though they tax you at 90%, the government gets $90, you get 10. The Laffер Curve does not assume this. The Laffer Curve assumes that, well, I'm going to show you the next screen shows you what the Laffer Curve assumes. So this chart up here is going to be the next line, and we'll show you what the Laffer Curve assumes. Instead of going straight across, economic activity gets dissuaded, disincentivized. At 100% taxable activity, it doesn't matter whether do you really want to work overtime? Do you want to ask for a raise? No. There's no reason to ask for a raise or work overtime. If you cut off a day's worth of work, are you going to get a day's less pay? Well, government's taking all of it. If it's based off of your needs, you're willing to withstand a little bit more taxes. So the people who are still putting economic activity in, represented by 10, they really need to. People who don't want, who are only based off wants, they don't even want to withstand a $10 or 10% taxation rate. So they drop off. Either way, it has to go from 100 to 0. But does it go exactly diagonal? No. Different situations means you might have a slow loss of taxable GDP. It stays up high for a while. Fast loss of GDP. This is based off of if you're only taxing on wants. People can do with or without the job. They really don't care whether they make that much more money because it's for their third vacation. It's for another night on the town where you're already going on 50 nights on the town a year. This makes it up to 52 or 53. You're going to spend more time with your children. You're not going to work those extra hours. You're not going to start that new business. You're not going to put those extra hours in doing everything you can. Average, slow loss based off of you really need to. Let's say you're at war. You really, really want to work your fingers to the bone to make sure your husband, your uncles, your sons, your nephews, even your nieces and all the women also, but that they have everything they need to fight that war. They have the planes, they have the ships, they have the bullets, they have everything they need. You really want that war to be won. You could be working for $10 for a whole week and you're willing to do it 100 hours because guess what? It's going to help your husband come home safe and not dead. However, let's say it's a war that you really don't like. We're the aggressor. We are terrorizing people. We're doing things that you really hate. You don't want to support and give money to the government to go on a war. You might do a fast loss of GDP. A little bit of tax rates you can withstand, but once it gets a little bit, you're just like, I don't want to fund the government at all, but I need to make a little bit of a living. So you're willing to drop off economic activity or do it under the table. Okay, let's go on. I'm trying to keep this down to 15 minutes. Let's see if I can do it. This is where the Laffер Curve comes in. This is the most important, the line I showed you before. This is the average loss of taxable GDP. This is money we get to keep if the full economic activity, I didn't even talk about this yet. This is your whole world. Wherever you are on this is your whole GDP. You don't get to see what's up above you. This might be America. This might be North Korea, maybe Venezuela over here, some second world countries, developing nations over here, Canada and some England and some other first world countries that are doing really well way up in here. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, so you can't really, wherever you are, that's your whole economic activity. You don't get to see everything else. Anyway, but this is the actual Laffер Curve. How much tax revenue government's getting in. At 10%, they get $9 because economic activity dropped. At 40%, it dropped down to $60 economic activity. You can only tax. At 40%, you get $24. You're right around here. You never want to be close to here. You never want to be on this side of the Laffer Curve. But let's look at this, going from 40% taxation rate to a 50. Economic activity drops from 60 to 50. That's a lot of drop just to get one more dollar into the tax collections, into the tax revenue. Yes, government collected one more dollar, but your paycheck went from $49 to $36 after taxes. Economic activity, your gross earnings went from 60 to 50 because you're not willing to work those extra hours, or other businesses aren't willing to stay around and do what they're supposed to be doing. So, what do we do here? So, that's what we're talking about here. So let's keep on going. This is the Laffer Curve on mostly wants when you have a very fast loss of GDP. After 10%, 19% of your economic activity goes away because nobody wants to do it even at 10%. It's wants, or it's a war that we don't want to win. We don't want to fund the government because we think it's immoral. At 50% taxation rate, only 25% of the people are willing to work, or some people reduce down the number of hours they work. And again, this is taxable GDP. If you exempt the first $30,000, you get that $30,000 free. Government's not making any money on that $30,000 that you earned because they deducted it, exempted that money from tax collections. So you might make $30,000 and everything below here is lifted up by $30,000 other than tax collections. Because you don't have tax collections, but your income might be a little bit higher. So instead of 64, let's say you exempt the first 30,000. Well, it messes up the numbers a lot, but that pushes your economic activity up, but your taxable GDP goes down. So we're talking about the most you get here is $15. $15 to get when you have just taxing for wants, not needs. Let's go on. Slow loss of GDP. You really need to put food on your table. You really want to win that war. You really need to put shelter over for your family and get medical care for your family. You're willing to withstand a lot of tax rates and still work. So it's very important to know that the loss of GDP goes down very low. And you can get up to $38 for the Laffер Curve at 60%. We never want to get close to that because, shoot, if we're going from 40 to 60, we get all of $4 and we lose from $91 to $64 for per capita income type of numbers. Okay, these are just the Laffер curves from the slow loss to the fast loss. So, slow loss of GDP based off taxing on needs, fast loss of GDP based off taxing on wants, and the average loss of GDP. So you see how tax revenue is all over the place. So no doubt about it, decreasing taxes from, let's say, 40% to 30% will decrease tax revenue going towards the government. No doubt about it. It will decrease it from 15 to 13, 21 to 16, or 27 to 19. No doubt about it. But the other lines I showed means the full economic activity, the per capita income. Now, it might take 10, 15 years to realize that change. But a 2% growth versus a 4% growth over 10 years, that's like a 22% growth, a GDP difference. Economic activity, per capita increase in GDP, per capita income. That's the difference when you go from 2% growth to a 4% growth. Or let's say a flat for 10 years versus 3%. Shoot, that's a 30-some percent. That goes from some of my other lines. Let's go to this line real quick. That goes from here to here. It really goes up. So you might get an extra couple dollars by going up in tax rates, but you lose a lot per capita. Anyway, I wanted to keep this at a 15-minute long one. Let's go back to this slide real quick. This is money we get to keep off of the different ones. All these slides are going to be on my website. You can pause and look at this slide, but this is my basic Lafffer curve. The most important line is this. The Lafffer curve is this math, and it's interesting to know what we get to keep in our paycheck after taxes, what gets deposited into our bank accounts from payroll, after payroll or tax deductions. So we don't want to come anywhere close to this. Now, when you're talking about businesses, it's very important that they want to max out how much profit they make. They're willing to go here. That's a good thing for businesses. But for government, it's a really bad thing because economic activity drops. Now, in businesses, your sales drop, but your income, profits, maximize at a certain point. We don't want to do that for government in any way, shape, or form because this is everybody's income. This is per capita income. This is GDP. This is something that makes our lives a lot better. So we never want to be out of here. I want to be way over here, 5-10%. And we're way up in here. And we still have to pay for the other stuff, but we're paying for it through the free enterprise system. We pay for our own children's education. We pay for our own roads. We pay for, instead of welfare, we go to a charity system. Instead of government paying for healthcare, the charity system and insurance and the like. There's lots of ways to pay for it and have a full systems that we have. Anyway, that's my teaching on the Lafffer Curve and a little bit how it affects the Haley 2024 reforms. So, until the next video.